Hello and welcome to another episode of the Average Joe Football Show. I'm your host, Joe Fair. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Eugene Levy's Eyebrows, favorite football podcast. Yes. Eugene Levy. Eugene Levy, one of them. Eugene Levy.
I only know one Levy.
Famous Canadian actor. Eugene Levy.
Oh,
yeah,
Schitt's
you know.
Creek.
Schitt's Creek. Have you seen the show?
No, I have not.
Okay, he's from American Pie.
Wow.
He's from Cheaper by the Dozen. 2, the second one, Cheaper by the Dozen. Some would argue it's the best Cheaper by the Dozen. Eugene Levy. Schitt's Creek is sweeping all of the Emmys.
I heard that actually.
So I figured I'd be a little, pop culture reference again. Eugene Levy's eyebrows. The guy has big eyebrows. Yeah,
absolutely
but
huge.
Overall, I'd say he's a pretty handsome guy.
No, he is.
It's just I think the eyebrows only add to the really. If you're listening to this and you don't know who Eugene Levy is, if you Google him, you will know who Eugene Levy is.
Instantly.
100%. He's got a face that you just know and that you just love to know.
Yeah, he looks like an old Casey Neistat.
He does look like an old Casey Neistat.
Kind of, though.
Oh, wow. Casey Neistat, potentially related to Eugene Levy. No, but Daniel Levy is.
Breaking news. Daniel Levy, is that his son?
He's the director of Schitt's Creek, and he's his son.
Wow.
Yeah, so Canadians, fellow Canadians. Good for them doing the whole. You've said you've never watched Schitt's Creek, right?
I have not.
No, my wife and I did. Quite enjoyed it. Haven't seen the last season yet, but apparently everybody else enjoys it because it won literally everything.
I know.
At the Emmys. Not to say that I watch the Emmys because I don't ever watch stuff like that.
I'm boycotting the Emmys.
Joe's boycotting essentially any award show. You are boycotting the Grammys, right?
Grammys, 100%.
Okay.
There's no question about it.
Why don't you explain that?
Talk about your Gordon Levitt guy, and then we'll.
What?
I was thinking Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Joseph
Gordon-Levitt.
Okay. What about him? You're talking about Eugene Levy?
I was accidentally thinking about that while I was doing this.
Oh, okay.
Because Levitt just.
Okay.
It was my mistake. Let's move on.
I'm trying to move on, but I thought you were going to talk about your.
No. I was going to say you continue. You were going to say something about Eugene Levy here.
No, not really. I just thought he's a Canadian. He's a cool guy. He's an actor. I just remember. I didn't know that he was Canadian because I don't know a whole lot of stuff about pop culture. But I remember when the Raptors were in the NBA Finals against the Warriors, Game 1 of the Finals, they did a whole thing where the Canadians. In the crowd sang the Canadian national anthem.
No way.
And then all of a sudden, in the screen, I thought I was seeing things because Eugene Levy was at the game and he was just in the middle of the crowd and the camera was on him and he was super patriotic, singing everything.
Nice.
I was like, is that Eugene Levy? And it's just, looking back, it's really funny because if it was like a Lakers game or like a New York Knicks game in Los Angeles or in New York, it's like, oh, you'll see Beyonce, Jay-Z, guys like that, Cardi B and her baby, and maybe her divorce lawyer.
Possibly.
You're gonna see them there. But here in Canada, Eugene Levy is the headliner. He's the guy that gets to be on screen when they are in their first NBA Finals. It's Eugene Levy and all of his eyebrows.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we do have Drake as well, but I mean, some would argue that Eugene Levy is more of a national treasure than Drake is.
I think that if they ever did a live action Up movie,
ooh,
he'd be a good grandpa.
I've never seen Up before, and
that surprises me. That movie was amazing.
Well, like we were talking about before the show, I don't cry, so I don't know if I would enjoy the show or the movie rather, because I'm not a cry. I heard that it's a sad.
It is sad, but it's great.
Did you cry during it?
No, okay. I also watched it when I was younger.
Okay,
but it's a good movie.
Okay, well I'll have to give it a watch at some point. But yeah, you're boycotting the Grammys.
Yeah,
and this is something that you make very, very clear.
Yeah, I am boycotting the Grammys, and
you've told me this on numerous occasions. Your boycott of the Grammys. How many times before this boycott had you watched the Grammys?
Sorry, one more time.
How many times before you started this boycott had you actually watched the Grammys?
A few, but I never watched them because I didn't really have cable, so I wasn't privileged like you.
Okay, well,
but I just kept up on them on the internet.
Oh, and now you just your boycott is just not keeping up on them.
Yeah, no, I still look at them.
So
Shut up.
What is the boycott then? The boycott is just not emotionally caring about them.
It's just every time someone brings up the Grammys, I talk crap about the Grammys.
Yeah, and why don't you like the Grammys?
It's just like your Pro Bowl. The Grammys is a popularity contest.
Oh,
it's a complete popularity contest because when you look at like what kind of players are going to be in the Pro Bowl?
Just
this year.
It's usually a lot of players often get snubbed. Like somebody will make an All-Pro team, which an All-Pro team is much more illustrious than a Pro Bowl. It's like it actually means something. So they'll make an All-Pro team, but they won't make the Pro Bowl because they're not a very known player. Mm-hmm. It's like it's like all because the Pro Bowl gets voted on by fans, which is the stupidest thing. Like fans don't know anything. Fans are stupid. Why would you let the fans vote? So that's kind of why it's a popularity contest. The people that deserve it don't always get in.
Exactly right, and that's why this year Megan Thee Stallion is gonna win Best New Artist. Oh my goodness,
Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah, whatever the heck her name is.
Is that her name?
I think so.
What song does she sing?
The new Devil song that came out.
The Devil song?
Yeah.
Is it WAP?
Yes.
She sings WAP?
Yes.
It's her and Cardi B?
Her and Cardi B.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
That one, multiple other ones. If you've heard any TikTok song ever, it's one of those.
Oh.
A few of those, rather.
We're like in our early 20s, but we're so old. So much older than that.
I know.
But if you would show me or have me listen to Megan Thee Stallion or Cardi B, I would probably tell you that they're the same person. Are they very similar artists?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Cardi B has her trademark voice. Like she has this voice that you'll just know.
She's got a booming voice.
Yeah, but no, they're the same person.
Yeah, it's the same. I don't know. It's just, I'm not going to tell you as who you should look up to in life, but maybe don't look up to people like Cardi B or Meg Thee Stallion.
Yeah.
But anyways, we are going to talk about NFL football at some point today.
Unfortunately
for Joe, we're going to talk about every freaking game that happened this weekend. Again, 16 games happened here in week 2. In week 2, a lot of people want to talk about overreacting to week 1. A lot of overreactions. Week 2, people are basically doing the same thing, overreacting in a different way or underreacting. But we'll get into that. We'll get into a new segment I'm calling Level of Concern for the 0-2 teams in the NFL. Not the 21 Pilots song, but it's a new segment that we're starting here on the podcast. And then we're going to get into my week 3 picks, my lock of the week, and a potential punishment that I avoided this week because I got my lock correct, spoiler alert, but I could be facing at some point if my lock does not turn out. But yeah, this week was quite an eventful week in the NFL world. Ton of injuries, which really sucked. I mean, really, really devastating injuries. We'll get into that as we go through the games. Some teams are going to look a lot different these upcoming weeks with some of these injuries. And some teams, are going to have to find ways to recover. Some teams are going to be terrible. And we'll get into one specific team that I think is going to or a couple teams really that could potentially now be vying for the number 1 pick instead of actually competing because their best players went out. Also, sort of a weird fantasy week. I mean, Joe, you had a good fantasy week, did you not?
I did.
Did you? Are you 2-0 now?
I'm 2-0. 2-0. Were kind of a blowout.
Oh my goodness gracious!
No, not. I wouldn't say that. My first week, I forget. Oh, never mind. He made more points.
You lost?
I lost. No, I won.
Okay.
Just not by as much. Not by as much as I thought I did.
He made more points. He said.
I won this week. 136.88 points to 112.16.
Okay, so still a fairly good. Who did Matt? Yeah.
Your cousin.
My cousin Matt. Suck it, Matt. I did not win this week.
I got screwed.
Kind of smacked. Not gonna lie, it wasn't all that well. It ended up being pretty close because Alvin Kamara put up some points for me there in the last game. But ESPN is just telling me that I needed a Snickers because I lost. That's rude. But I had really bad luck. I mean, I had Julio Jones starting. The guy gave me 4.4 points. He had 2 receptions for 24 yards, and he dropped a touchdown at one point. We'll get into that later as we go through the games. Mark Andrews, who usually scores touchdowns up the wazoo, had 1 reception for 29 yards. Raheem Mostert had an 80-yard touchdown to start the game off and then got hurt.
Oh, no.
And shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles defense for getting me -1 point. Thanks for that, guys. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for all your efforts out there. We're going to get into what a tire fire Philadelphia could be this year and how bad they look through 2 weeks. But yeah, fantasy-wise, it was a little bit of a discouraging week for me. I lost 157 to 135. But at least you're 2-0, Joe.
I'm 2-0.
2-0. That's not bad. It always goes this way, you know? Somebody like me who knows too much about football, I think, overthinks things. And now...
I have not changed my roster yet.
You haven't changed your roster?
No.
You made a trade, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you traded for Calvin Ridley.
Yes, and that was the best decision I ever made. He gave me 30 points this week.
Yeah, probably the best decision you've ever made in your life, I think.
More than likely.
That was, Rage Against the Machine is off to a really nice start. Calvin Ridley, you had Calvin Ridley, Stephon Diggs, and Julian Edelman. Holy smokes. Literally every receiver that had a big week you had on your roster this week.
Know.
I think when the season started, you had 2 receivers on your team. Mm-hmm. And now you have all the good ones.
Yep, but I do need a tight end. I have Rob Gronkowski. Thanks for nothing.
Yeah, he had no catches this week.
0 points.
0 points.
0 points.
Yeah, we might talk about that as well when we go through the games. But, instead of beating around the bush any longer, we've already kept you here long enough. Why don't we jump into all 16 games from week 2? First up, the Thursday night game, we had the Cincinnati Bengals going into Cleveland and playing the Cleveland Browns. And this was a really, really fun game. It's hard to believe we're saying that about a Bengals and Browns game because usually those two teams are pretty terrible. And we haven't seen a good game like this between them in a very long time. But I was extremely excited to watch this game, and it did not disappoint. The Bengals ended up falling to the Browns 35-30. And one of my biggest takeaways, I think, from this game is that finally, the Cleveland Browns are fun again. Going off of week 1, after week 1, they were depressing. I mean, they looked bad. They looked like they had lost their confidence. Baker Mayfield looked like he was a mess. I mean, they were in a bad spot, and I think they needed a game like this to get their swagger back. We saw Baker Mayfield. He looked confident. He looked really, really good in that first half. Him and Joe Burrow together, I mean, they had a really, really good game. Like I said, Baker got his swag back. He looked good. He was finding Odell Beckham. This Browns offense was moving the ball. And then you had on the other side of the ball, Joe Burrow played tremendous again. I mean, he does not look like a rookie. He looks comfortable in the pocket. He's another guy with tremendous confidence. I mean, he was 37 for 61. So he threw 61 passes, which is out of this world. It's outrageous. He threw 61 passes. He had 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So a great game for Joe Burrow. I do worry that offensive line, I think, is bad, and he is getting clobbered at some points. I mean, he is getting hit a lot, but overall, he looked sharp. He looked good in that game. And this game kind of came down to the end. It looked like the Browns kind of ran away with it, and the Bengals made a late comeback off of a Baker Mayfield interception. And it looked like Baker was going to have to go out there and kind of take the game back. But then Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb just went off late in that game. They put that game away. I mean, they were phenomenal in this game. Nick Chubb had 22 attempts for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Kareem Hunt had 10 attempts for 86 yards and a touchdown. He also had 2 receptions for 15 yards and a touchdown. So that running game, they probably have the best running back duo in the NFL. I mean, I was really, really impressed by this Cleveland offense. And hopefully, if you're a Browns fan or if you're a fan of the team like I am, I root for Baker Mayfield. I root for the Cleveland Browns. I want them to be fun because they have so many fun, interesting players. This might be the game that finally got them their spark back, maybe lit a fire under the butt, and they can finally, go back to being that fun team again. But it was a fun Thursday night game. Jumping into the next game, and it was the Packers hosting the Lions. Packers win 42-21. Another really, really solid performance for the Green Bay Packers. The Lions got off to a hot start. They were up 14-3 at one point, and then by halftime they trailed 17-14. Aaron Rodgers is continuing to look really, really good. Like I said last year, I'm here for an Aaron Rodgers revenge season. I am looking forward to seeing what he can do this season. I love that everybody counted him out. Everybody forgot about the Packers. Everybody forgot that the Packers were 13-3 last year, and Aaron Rodgers is showing them that this Packers team is still good. I mean, they have pieces on this team. Aaron Rodgers, all that was talked about this offseason is that he has no weapons, and I talked about it too. He doesn't have tremendous receivers, but Devontae Adams is incredible. He's one of the best receivers in the NFL. He's looked really great. He did get injured in this game. Hopefully it's not too serious, but there are other guys stepping up on that roster. You had the running backs. The Packers running game was tremendous in this game. Aaron Jones had 18 attempts for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you had Jamal Williams also adding in 63 yards. And he also had 4 receptions, or this was Aaron Jones with 4 receptions for nearly 70 yards and a touchdown. I mean, so they're altogether they had 259 rush yards. And then you add in Aaron Rodgers, who's looking like an MVP candidate early. This Packers team could be scary this season. They could be 13-3 again, or they could be even better. They could be a potential number 1 seed if this holds. Jumping into the next game, this was the Bills visiting Hard Rock Stadium to play my Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins dropped the game 31-28 to the Buffalo Bills. And before I get into this game, I just want to say to the Mic'd Up podcast, Billy, Nick, and Mike, who are listening to this, I heard your guys' podcast last week, okay? I heard you guys. You guys were really feeling yourself. Oh my goodness. You guys were just calling me out. Trying to start beef, honestly.
They were.
Not only... Did you listen to it, Joe? Did you listen to it?
I listened to the parts you told me.
Oh, yeah, you did listen, yeah. So they were really... I think they want to get a reaction out of it, and you're gonna get a reaction out of me. So if you guys have not listened, please listen to the Mic'd Up podcast. They're a great podcast. But last week they were just talking all this junk. Oh, Josh Allen is great. Joe doesn't know what he's talking about. Josh Allen is awesome. And then to top things off, they want to talk crap about Mitch Trubisky.
Are you kidding me?
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 Are you kidding me? You can talk crap about me, okay?
Are you kidding me?
Are you kidding?
Cannot believe it.
You can talk crap about me. You can talk crap about Joe.
No, you cannot.
Okay, just me. You can talk crap about this podcast if you want, But don't for a second think that you can slander our guy, Mitch Trubisky. And make sure that if you're gonna talk crap about him, guys, make sure you say his name right.
Yeah.
Who's Mitchell Trubisky?
Never heard of her.
Never heard of her. I think you mean Mitch Trubisky? Is that who you're talking about? Our boy Mitch Trubisky? Put some respect on his name. We'll talk about him later in the podcast because guess what? That guy got a big win this week again.
Bet he did.
And, is Josh Allen as bad as I say he is? Probably not. He freaking balled out in this game. I mean, like he does every time against the Dolphins. He made me look really dumb. And, a lot of people think that, hey, what's Joe's problem with Josh Allen? He just has a personal vendetta against Josh Allen. That's not the truth. I'm sure Josh Allen is a phenomenal person, great guy. I'm sure he would be a good friend. But I still am not convinced that he's going to be a franchise quarterback for years to come. I'm not convinced that he's a top 5 talent in the NFL. I think he misses too many throws. I think he plays on a good team. He plays with a good scheme. I think they scheme up really good plays for him. And you saw that in this game. I mean, there was, again, for the second straight week, the Dolphins are allowing wide open guys all over the field. I mean, there was just guys wide open. And it's frustrating because the secondary for the Dolphins is supposed to be their strength. I mean, they brought in Byron Jones, who got hurt in this game. Another injury. They have Xavier Howard. They drafted Noah Igbenogany in the first round, who was absolutely flamed by Stephon Diggs in this game. But Josh Allen had finished with 417 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's the best game he's probably ever had as a pro. I mean, he balled out in this game. I'm not going to hate too much on Josh Allen. He did play really well. He made me eat my words. He played good. He did still miss some throws. He had some errant throws. I think he got bailed out at times by some of his receivers. They made really good catches, and he had a couple throws. I remember one on third down where he really, really threw a bad pass. I believe it was to Stephon Diggs, and he couldn't convert there, and that ended up not mattering, but it seemed like it was a much bigger deal at the time. But he played really well. Stephon Diggs looked worth a first-round pick. I mean, he had 8 receptions, 153 yards, and a touchdown. He looked great. And for the Dolphins, I mean, this is a discouraging loss. You had a chance to win. They were up by 4 at one point, late into the third quarter. Just way too many missed opportunities. They were at the 1 yard line. They had 4 chances to get the ball in, couldn't do it. They got Preston Williams dropped the pass in the end zone, missed way too many opportunities. I will say I like this Bills team. You know, I've talked a lot of crap about Josh Allen, but I like the Bills team. I think they're talented. I like what Brian Daboll, their offensive coordinator, does. I think he's really scheming up good plays for Josh Allen. A lot of play action, a lot of, like I said, open receivers all over the field. And this game was crazy. I mean, Josh Allen played tremendous, and of course, the day that Josh Allen plays great, there's also a CBS power outage. So the TV station CBS that is showing the game, they had a power outage, so the game just wasn't on. I was watching it on my phone, and I was on the channel, and they just switched to a different game. I was watching. They were like, "Oh, yeah, we don't know what's going on, so here, watch the Steelers and Broncos." They literally didn't have power, so the game was happening. They were playing the game, but you couldn't watch it. And then they go into halftime, and they're going to come out and play after half, and there's a lightning delay. So there's a half-hour lightning delay in this game.
Oh my gosh!
So, you know, credit to the Bills. They had a bunch of weird things happen in this game. The half-hour lightning delay, you'd think, you know, it's time to cool off, but they did come out slow in the third quarter. But I really liked how late in the game they didn't just sit on the ball. They kept taking shots deep down the field, and they put a dagger in the Dolphins late. So shout out to Josh Allen. Played great, made me look dumb. And to the Mic'd Up Podcast, if you guys want to start beef, get me on the podcast, and I'll argue my case with Josh Allen, and I'll defend our boy Mitch Trubisky till the day that I die. Yeah. Okay? Because he deserves it. So if you want to talk crap about me. Don't bring Mitcher into this. Moving on to the next game, the Panthers versus the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers picking up their very first win in the Tom Brady era. This was a game that looked like it was going to be a blowout early. The Buccaneers looked like they came out motivated. They were up 21-0 at one point. Brady and Mike Evans finally started to connect. They looked great. Mike Evans had 7 receptions on 10 targets for 104 yards and a touchdown. So that looked great. They ended up almost blowing this lead late. It was a 1-score game at one point. In the second half, they looked kind of like they lost a touch there offensively. But I think it was a good get-right game for the Buccaneers and for Tom Brady. A lot of people wanted to talk, a lot of smack after the first game. And I told you guys after week 1, this team, I still don't think they're where they need to be yet. I think they'll get better. I think they just need time to gel. They didn't have a preseason. They didn't have any game reps. I think they're going to take time to gel. Tom Brady is going to get better. I've seen Tom Brady enough to know that he has another level. And you want to talk about the Panthers side of the ball. I thought they played fairly well in the second half. They ended up almost coming back in this game. Christian McCaffrey went down with an injury, which was devastating. He could be out potentially 4 to 6 weeks for the Panthers, which is rough for a lot of fantasy owners. But, in terms of things that actually matter, it's rough for Christian McCaffrey in general and rough for that team. I think this team, they kind of go from a team that might be a little frisky, might be, a team that's going to upset a lot of teams' playoff hopes later on in the season. I think without Christian McCaffrey, they're a team that could be vying for that number 1 pick and maybe getting Trevor Lawrence. So Christian McCaffrey's out for a few weeks. But yeah, like I said, Brady played pretty well in this game, and he gets his very first win as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Still have yet to see Rob Gronkowski play well in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniform. He had 0 catches in this game. He has not done a whole lot. He looks like a guy that's been out. I know, Joe, you had him on your fantasy. Mm-hmm. Sorry about that. He's been pretty disappointing so far. But yeah, hopefully he finds a second gear at some point as well. Moving on to the next game, and this was a game between the Vikings and the Colts there in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. The Indianapolis Colts walk away with a 28-11 victory over the Minnesota Vikings. Wasn't all that close. Not all that close. I thought going into this game that this was a game between two teams that were 0-1 and really, really looking for momentum, looking for a spark, looking for something to improve on after week one, because I think both of them looked rough in week one. Both of them did not start the season the way they wanted to start. And after this game, I think these two teams are going to walk away feeling very, very different about their season. I thought the Colts, they lost Marlon Mack last week. That was, that hurt their offense. I thought they are going to walk away from this game feeling good. I mean, they had a really disappointing loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars last week rather. Did not start the season the way they wanted to. But Phillip Rivers played fine. He played well. He had an early interception again. He didn't throw for a touchdown, but he didn't throw the game away like he has a tendency to do at times. He played good enough. He had 25 completions on, 19 completions rather, on 25 attempts for 214 yards. Oh, he did have a touchdown. My bad. He had a touchdown, and then he had an interception like we talked about on the first drive. And Jonathan Taylor, who had a lot of hype going into this week as a big-time fantasy pickup, he had a good game. He looks like the guy there in Indianapolis. He looks like he's going to be what people thought he was. He had 100 yards on 26 carries, also had a touchdown. And I thought the Colts D-line played really good. DeForest Buckner played really, really well. He had 1.5 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, and 4 QB hits on Kirk Cousins. And speaking of Kirk Cousins, he was not good. He looked really rough. I mean, after 3 quarters, he was 6 for 20, 59 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. This was a rough game. I mean, and Vikings fans, like we talked about Colts fans leaving feeling encouraged after this game, I think the Vikings fans and Vikings team in general is going to leave feeling very much the opposite, because they looked bad. And Kirk Cousins, this is probably the worst game he's ever played. He was 11 for 16, 113 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So both of these teams are going to leave this game feeling very different. Moving on to the next game, it was the Washington football team versus the Arizona Cardinals. My biggest takeaway from this game is, man, oh man, Kyler Murray is so awesome. He's so awesome. I mean, goodness gracious. The guy is so fun to watch. He's one of the most fun players in the NFL right now. He's having a year kind of like people were hyping him up to have. The Cardinals are fun. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins and Kenyon Drake are really cool. They're fun to have on that team. Kyler Murray was 26 for 38, 286 yards, a touchdown and a pick. He also had 8 rushes for 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, and this guy, he is so fast. I mean, it is unreal. I would love to see what his 40-yard dash is, because he makes defenders look silly. He's such an incredible passer, and then you add the aspect of running to his game. I think if you put Kyler Murray in a system like Lamar Jackson, he could be even better, I think, than Lamar Jackson, because he's just a pure thrower. I mean, Lamar Jackson is an athlete who can throw, and I think that Kyler Murray is a quarterback, a guy who can throw, who's also an athlete. I mean, the guy has a really great arm, and it's just makes plays. And I thought the Cardinals overall looked really great in this game. Their defense played awesome. They had 4 sacks on Dwayne Haskins. And on the other side of the ball, Washington, they were overmatched in this game. I thought there was maybe potential for their defensive line to have another big game and maybe pull off the upset. I almost picked them to win this game as sort of an upset pick. But Dwayne Haskins was fine. He was 19 for 33, 223 yards and a touchdown. And my overall takeaway from this game is, if you're a Washington fan, if there are any left at this point, if you're a Washington fan and you're looking at these 2 quarterbacks, both from the same draft class, and like I said, Dwayne Haskins was fine in this game. He was not a mess. He wasn't terrible. But if you just compare your quarterback that you got in that draft class to the quarterback that went number 1, Kyler Murray, they are eons and eons apart. I mean, they're not even close to the same player. Kyler Murray is a superstar in the making, and Dwayne Haskins is not that. And I think that the Washington football team has a big decision to make this upcoming season. And it's whether they think that they can build around Dwayne Haskins or whether they think they can move on, because there are quarterbacks coming in this draft. Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. There's some really great quarterbacks. You got to decide, do you think Dwayne Haskins is worth hanging on to, or can you get a guy like Kyler Murray, a guy who can come and change the complexion of that team? This team would not be looking like this if they still had Josh Rosen as a quarterback. That's not happening. But Kyler Murray has come and completely changed that whole face of that franchise, and they look like so much fun, and they are so much fun. And that was my biggest takeaway from the Washington team at the Cardinals. Moving on to the next game, it was the Jaguars at the Titans. The Titans pull off a 33-30 victory. Steven Gostkowski, for the second straight week, hits a game-winning kick. I mean, that guy, talk about a roller coaster of emotions. I mean, he had 4 missed kicks, I believe, in week 1, and he also missed an extra point in week 2. But then he hits a game winner with 130 with a minute and 36 seconds left in the game. He makes a 49-yard field goal to put the Titans up 33-30. They actually had a big lead in this game at one point. The Jaguars able to scrap back in there, and then a late interception by Harold Landry ended up sealing the deal. And I thought this game, both these quarterbacks played really well. This is a quarterback duel. I mean, Ryan Tannehill looks good. He was 18 for 24, 239 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, he made some incredible throws. He had one throw for a touchdown where he got shellacked. I mean, he got his bell rung. He got hit hard, and he throws a perfect strike into the end zone for a touchdown. I mean, the guy looks confident. He looks good. And, people want to say, where the heck was this when he was in Miami? And that's fair. I always thought Ryan Tannehill was a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think he's good. I root for him. And I've seen him make throws like this. He had one touchdown to Kenny Stills. I believe it was against the Chargers. Chargers or the Titans. I can't quite remember. I believe it was the Chargers. And it was the same situation. Got smoked through a strike to the end zone. He has all the talent. It's just been a matter of he's had terrible coaches, and I really root for him in Tennessee. And on the other side, Gardner Minshew, I mean, this guy's he's just good. I mean, let's stop debating whether or not Gardner Minshew can be a starting quarterback for the Jags. If the Jags want him, he's there. I mean, he is there. He's a good quarterback. He was 30 for 45, 339 yards. He had 3 touchdowns. He did have 2 picks. But if a guy like Sam Darnold was playing like Gardner Minshew is right now, people would make a mess in their pants. I mean, goodness gracious. Gardner Minshew, this guy needs to get respect. He's a good quarterback. He's not just a meme. I mean, he's a really good quarterback, and the Jags have their guy. Everybody wants to talk about Trevor Lawrence there in Jacksonville, but this team, they have a good quarterback, and they need to build around this quarterback, in my opinion. And if he doesn't stick in Jacksonville, I'd love to see him somewhere else, because I think Gardner Minshew's a real guy. He can be the guy there, and I'm intrigued to see him against Miami on Thursday night. But my overall takeaway is these 2 quarterbacks deserve respect, and the Titans, don't sleep on them. They could be another sneaky playoff team. They made it all the way to the AFC Championship game last year, and they're not that bad this year either. Moving on to the next game, and it was the Giants versus the Chicago Bears, and you already know what we're talking about when we're talking Chicago Bears. The Bears. We're talking about our boy. Joe comes back into the podcast. Mr. Bisky.
Mr. Risky Bisky Business.
Bisky Business, baby. He's 2-0.
Yeah.
He's 2-0.
As am I.
Exactly. As are you. Take that, Deshaun Watson. How does it feel to be 0-2? Oh, I don't care that you played the Chiefs and the Ravens. So what? Bisky, man, he's 2-0. Listen, man, this guy was making some throws in the first half.
Yeah.
People want to talk crap about Mitcher. The guy's making some. He's impressed me, honestly. I talk about how much I love him. I was expecting there to be more controversy. And listen, people want to say he didn't play good in the second half. Okay, whatever. He also he had 2 interceptions and 31 yards in the second half. that's just him giving his teammates a shot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like he's just, you know, he's given them a chance. He played a good first half. He's like, all right, you guys take it from here, and they did, man. They won 17-13. And Biskey, you know, he's 2-0, like I talked about. The guy just can't lose right now. He's going to play the Atlanta Falcons next week, so hopefully that continues. But on a more serious note, Saquon Barkley for the Giants, injured in this game. Super devastating. Really, really sad. I mean, he tore his ACL. We talked about last week how he looked really, really bad in week 1. Had no room to run. This Giants offensive line could not make holes for him. And he was starting to look like his old self in this game, but he ended up getting hurt, tearing his knee up, and he's done for the season. The Giants ended up signing Devontae Freeman, who was a free agent, former Atlanta Falcons running back. So that's obviously a huge downgrade. So it's devastating to lose a guy, a star like Saquon Barkley. I think I had him ranked at number 5 in my top 5 running backs going to the 2020 NFL season. So thoughts and prayers to Saquon Barkley. Hopefully he recovers and he can come back and be that running back that we think that he can be and that he has the potential to be. But, you know, overall, not the most exciting game, but the most exciting part is Biskey picking up another win, going 2-0. You better believe it. We're going to be riding this train till the end, till he's enshrined in Canton and he's a Hall of Famer, baby. Mitch Trubisky. Give me Mitch Trubisky over Josh Allen every day, Mic'd Up podcast. On to another game that I have emotional ties in. It's not Mitch Trubisky, but it's my Dallas Cowboys, the team that I was so high on going into this season. And I'm not going to lie, they didn't look great in week 1, and they didn't look good in this game early on. I mean, they were down 20-0 at one point. And I was really, you know, fearing coming on this podcast and having to face the music. I mean, so the Falcons at one point had a 20-0 lead. They also had a 29-10 lead at half. And then they had a 15-point lead with under 5 minutes left in the game. And then they were up 2 with 1:49 left. And somehow, some way, the Dallas Cowboys made a comeback. So the Dallas Cowboys scored late. They're down 2. They have to kick an onside kick, which is a near impossibility to recover in today's league with the way the kickoff rules are now. It's almost impossible to recover an onside kick. But they kick the ball. Greg Zuerlein does the weirdest little pooch kick I've ever seen. He spins the ball and it's rolling. And basically, this is for those of you that don't know, on an onside kick, you're kicking the ball, obviously, to your team. You want your team to recover. The ball has to go 10 yards before your team can grab it. So basically what had happened was Greg Zuerlein kicked it, and the ball was rolling across, spinning across. It wasn't quite at 10 yards, so the Dallas Cowboys are all waiting. They're waiting for that ball to go 10 yards. But at the same time as they're waiting for the ball, the Atlanta Falcons, who noted, can grab the ball whenever they want. Whenever they want. As soon as Greg Zuerlein kicked that ball, they can grab it. But they watched the ball. They watched it get to 10 yards, and then the Cowboys recover. They march down the field. Greg the Leg kicks a game-winning field goal, and I don't look stupid for saying the Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl. I mean, they won 40-39, 1-point victory. Dang, Dak Prescott looked good. I mean, early on, this Cowboys offense struggled. They had 4 fumbles in just the first quarter. They lost 3 of them. But Dak Prescott came down with 450 yards passing, 1 touchdown in the air, and 3 rushing touchdowns. He was great for me in fantasy. And it's so great that this tremendous performance did not go without a win. This was a crazy game. And if you're a Falcons fan, holy smokes, we'll talk about you later because you're 0-2. We're going to get into the 0-2 teams. This is a rough loss to take. I mean, you're already known for blowing leads. This was rough. But the Dallas Cowboys, like we talked about with the Browns, this could potentially be the spark that this team needed. You know, this team looked not fun. They looked boring. They looked sluggish. Maybe this win, they looked hyped after they won this game. Maybe this win is what gets them on the right track. They got Seattle next week, which is not easy. So hopefully the Dallas Cowboys can make me look better, even better than I did this week. Moving on to the next game, and this was a depressing game all around for the winner and the loser. It was the 49ers visiting the New York Jets, It was a 31-13 shellacking of the New York Jets by the San Francisco 49ers. This game was all about injuries. It was all about injuries for the 49ers. Like we said, they won big time, but they lost Nick Bosa to an ACL tear. He's done for the season. Devastating. Solomon Thomas, ACL tear, done for the season. That hurts. They already don't have D Ford there on that defensive line. And then they lost Raheem Mostert, who's going to be out for a little while as well, to an MCL sprain. Who knows how long he's out with that. Jimmy G is day-to-day with a high ankle sprain. That's a nagging injury, something that can affect some players differently than others. So you lost, in the course of this one game, you lost Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, Raheem Mostert, and Jimmy G. That is a rough day. You already didn't have George Kittle. Like we talked about, D Ford was not there. You didn't have Deebo Samuel. I mean, this team is just ravaged with injuries. Jordan Reed, however, their tight end signing, who, talk about injuries, this guy is never healthy. He had a big game. He had 2 touchdowns. He hadn't scored a touchdown since November 11th, 2018. And he comes in and scores 2 touchdowns, plays tremendous. But overall, you hope the 49ers can recover. It sucks to lose Nick Bosa. I mean, the guy is great. He played so good last year, and he was really developing into a fantastic pass rusher. Not even developing. He already just was a good pass rusher. And the strength of this team is the defensive line. And to lose 2 starters on the defensive line like that is devastating. And for the New York Jets, I mean, you guys are a joke. I'm sorry. We'll get into the Jets later. I got a rant about them at some point, but we won't get too much into them right now. But it was embarrassing. All right, we got 6 games left in the week 2 schedule. Joe, how are the vibes over there? How are the vibes on that side of the table?
Good and great.
Good and great. Very good. You got anything to say more than halfway through these games?
Not
Anything
quite.
you want to interject with? No?
Not yet. No.
That's perfect. All right, just let it stew for a little bit longer, and we'll get you involved.
Steep.
Yeah, let it steep a little bit like tea. Speaking of steep tea, this has nothing to do with steep tea, but the Los Angeles Rams put a beating on the Philadelphia Eagles. A little bit of a pregnant pause there again for you, Joe.
How dare you?
Yeah, pregnant pause.
How dare you?
The Rams won 37-19. The Rams look so much better than I thought they would this season. They look really good. I mean, Malcolm Brown, their undrafted running back, looks great. And Darrell Henderson, the other running back there, looked really good in this game. Jared Goff's played well. I think Sean McVay has once again shown us that he's a really, really good head coach, and he runs a really good offense. I mean, he's made Jared Goff look great. He had 13 straight completions to start the game. And as far as the Eagles go, I mean, they're not good right now. You can't really say it any different. Carson Wentz is missing throws. His offensive line's hurt. He doesn't have a whole lot of receiver talent. Their defense is not what it once was. This Eagles team, to me, is looking like they're projecting the wrong way. I don't know what to really say. I mean, Carson Wentz was 26 for 43, 240 yards, no touchdowns and 2 picks. He just doesn't look good right now. And I think he has the ability to get better. I like Carson Wentz as a prospect. I like him as a player. But the Eagles just aren't good right now. And the Rams are the exact opposite. The Rams are a team, I think, right now they look like a playoff team. They look like they could sneak into the playoffs. Not even sneak. They could confidently walk into the playoffs and compete with almost anybody at this point. Moving on to the next game, and it was Joe's Baltimore Ravens going into Houston and putting a beating for the second straight week. Putting a beating.
Patcha.
On another AFC team. Joe, you were all about what Mark Ingram did there. He did
a little kick.
Yeah, tell the audience what your boy Mark Ingram did in this game.
Yeah, he just did a kick. You guys, if you guys are Ravens fan, you definitely saw it. Mark Ingram scored a touchdown, and then
he did like a cool little samurai,
like a cool little roundhouse thing on the not a roundhouse, whatever the heck it is.
On the Texans logo.
On the Texans logo. And it's hilarious.
This team's fun, man. I like
Oh, yeah.
Joe, you picked a fun team to root for. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens, not only are they so dominant, I mean, and they are just pillaging through teams they play right now. I mean, They are probably the hottest team in the NFL right now. But they have a lot of fun characters. Mark Ingram, Joe, you should look him up because he's got some funny interviews if you're ever bored. I mean, Mark Ingram's a funny guy. He's a guy you can root for. Lamar Jackson's a fun guy. The Baltimore Ravens, they look good. They look mad. They look frustrated that they've had 2 playoff disappointments the last 2 years. Lamar Jackson played tremendous again. He had 204 yards passing for a touchdown. He also chipped in 54 yards on the ground. And like I said, Baltimore looked really, really good. They had 230 rush yards, so 2 touchdowns. They also had a fumble return for a touchdown, so their defense played really well. They look good. I mean, they're the most complete roster potentially in the NFL. It's going to be hard to compete with Baltimore. If you're Houston, you're just trying to get out of this alive. I mean, you have such a rough schedule. To start the game, to start the season rather, they played the Chiefs. Then they went on to play the Ravens, and now they play Pittsburgh next week. And Pittsburgh looks good this year. That could be an 0-3 start. I still think Houston is fine. You know, people want to talk and say that they desperately miss DeAndre Hopkins, and I'm sure they do. I'm sure they would be better. I still think they'd be 0-2 even with DeAndre Hopkins. Will Fuller contributed absolutely nothing at all to this game. He had no catches, which is fantastic for my fantasy team. Thank you so much, Will Fuller. But that was disappointing. After a pretty good week 1, it looked like he was going to step up and be that number 1 guy, but they're still searching for that. But Houston, I think they could go on a late run. I think they're better than their record shows. I think they're better than they showed through 2 weeks. But like I said, just a tough start. But if they don't pick it up, you know, Bill O'Brien's job could be on the line. And Baltimore, I mean, nobody's job is on the line there. You guys look great. Moving on to the next game, we just talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers playing the Houston Texans next week. And this week they played the Denver Broncos. They walked away with a victory 26-21. One of my biggest takeaways from this game is Ben Roethlisberger looks back. I mean, Big Ben looked good in this game. He was 29 for 41, 311 yards. And listen, the Steelers have weapons. I mean, this is an offensive team. They've been an offensive team for years. And they lost, obviously, Antonio Brown, lost Le'Veon Bell. But they have weapons. They got Juju Smith-Schuster, who might not even really be the best receiver on that team anymore. This team is a receiver factory. They constantly just develop receivers. They got Deontay Johnson. And then Chase Claypool, the Canadian kid. Really great to see a fellow Canadian balling out. He had an 84-yard touchdown, which is the longest touchdown ever scored by a Canadian player in the NFL. So shout out to Chase Claypool. Maple Megatron is what they call him. He looks great. He's a fun player. And for the Broncos, a disappointing game because Drew Lock got hurt early in this game. He's going to be out a couple of weeks with a shoulder injury. That sucks. And then news came out that Cortland Sutton is done for the year with a torn ACL. That sucks really bad. I mean, we'll get into them later. They're 0-2. We'll get into them in the level of concern segment. It was a tough game for Denver, but the Steelers look like they could potentially be an AFC powerhouse this year. They could compete. And the Broncos, they just signed Blake Bortles, but it looks like Jeff Driscoll is most likely going to be the starter there. He didn't play terrible in this game, but obviously you'd much rather have Drew Lock being there and getting better at quarterback. Moving on to the next game, the division matchup between the Chiefs and the Chargers, and this was a game. Holy smokes. Out of the blue, out of nowhere, just a few minutes before the game started, word got out, and most people didn't even really hear about it. All of a sudden, Justin Herbert, the 6th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, got his first start as a Los Angeles Charger. Tyrod Taylor apparently had chest pains, and he had to sit out the game. He actually went to the hospital, so hopefully everything's okay there with Tyrod Taylor. But Justin Herbert ended up getting a surprise start and played surprisingly well. I mean, the guy, he looked raw in the draft process. He played good. He missed some throws. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't perfect, but the guy had 23 for 33, 311 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He already had 300 yards mic'd up. Just in case you're listening already this far into the podcast, Josh Allen didn't have 300 yards passing until the third season of his career, and Justin Herbert just did it in his first game. So just maybe jot that down. But no, I thought Josh Allen looked. Sorry, not Josh Allen. I thought Justin Herbert looked good in this game. Apparently, it's coming out that Tyrod Taylor is still going to be the starter there, which I don't know what the point of that is. Anthony Lynn, I like him as a coach. I think he's a good guy. I don't like that decision. Why not ride with Justin Herbert when he played like really well? I think he's a better version of Tyrod Taylor. But it wasn't just Justin Herbert in this game. The Chargers defense balled out early in this game. I mean, they put pressure on Mahomes early and often. Mahomes did not get a chance to get comfortable early in this game. He had 60 yards in the first half, and the Chargers were up at the half and really looked good throughout the game. But then the Chiefs woke up in the second half and they were good. I mean, Mahomes finished 27 for 47, 302 yards, 2 touchdowns after only having 60 yards in the first half. Tyreek Hill had no receptions in the first half, ended up with 5 receptions, 99 yards, and a touchdown. Mahomes just turned it on, looked like Superman again, and the Chiefs looked dominant again. And Harrison Butker hit a 58-yarder to win the game, and the Chargers blew that lead. But Justin Herbert looked pretty good. Moving on to the final 2 games of Week 2, and this game was another super fun game. It was the Seattle Seahawks versus the New England Patriots. And these two teams, every time they play, it seems like it's an entertaining game. And it was no different this time. It was a quarterback duel to be remembered. Russell Wilson had 288 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. And then Cam Newton, 397 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Also chipped in 47 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Julian Edelman went crazy in this game. Joe's fantasy team really thanked him for that. I mean, the guy caught everything in this game. Holy smokes.
He did.
He could not drop a pass. He had 8 receptions for 179 yards. DK Metcalf looked great. He toasted Stephon Gilmore a couple times. He had 92 yards and a touchdown. Like I said, every time these two teams play, it's fun. It came right down to the wire. It looked like the Seahawks were going to run away with this game. The Patriots made it close late, and it was a 5-point lead late into this game. And the Patriots marched it all the way down to the 1 or 2 yard line with about 4 seconds left, one final play, and they had already run with Cam Newton in essentially that same spot, 2 touchdowns, and Cam Newton looks unstoppable in that scenario. But they made a huge goal line stand, and the Seahawks walked out of there with a 35-30 victory. Russ looked amazing. He's definitely the early MVP favorite. And this was a fun game. I win my lock of the week with this game. I don't have to do my punishment. So that's phenomenal. But yeah, the Seahawks look great. And the Patriots, they're still relevant. And then moving on to the Monday night game, it was the Saints versus the Raiders, the very first game in the Death Star, the brand new stadium, the Allegiant Stadium there in Las Vegas, the first game ever played in Las Vegas. And the Raiders come away with an upset, 34-24. The Saints at one point were up 17-7. But then Darren Waller, a guy who I said was going to turn into a superstar this year, and he looked like a dang superstar in this game. He had 12 receptions for 103 yards and a touchdown. Man, he looks good. And Josh Jacobs chipped in 88 yards on the ground. Alvin Kamara for the Saints was awesome. But other than that, this Saints team does not look right. They were missing Michael Thomas in this game. Drew Brees doesn't look like Drew Brees right now. They usually, the Saints tend to get off to slow starts, and maybe you can chalk this up to that, but they don't look tremendous right now. The Raiders, they look like a fun team. They look like a frisky team, a team that you might need to watch out for late in the season. They could be a potential playoff contender, but it was a pretty fun Monday night game. Daniel Carlson hit a 54-yarder to ice the game. I thought that was a bold move by John Gruden, but Vegas picks up the win, and that wraps up our Week 2 recap. And before we get into level of concern, I got to give away the average Joe of the week. The average Joe of the week, and you might be asking yourself, what the heck is the average Joe of the week? What does that even mean? Some people want to celebrate all the superstars. Some people want to celebrate the flashy guys, the guys that have, all the yards, all the touchdowns. That's not what we do on this show. That's not what we do here. We celebrate the average Joe, the guy that does his job. He doesn't do any more, any less. He gets the job done. He gets the W, and it gives me so much pride and so much joy to give the average Joe of the week this week to none other than our baby boy, Mitcher Bisky is your average Joe of the week. I want you to know, Bisky, you are everything but average to us, but this week you were exactly average. You played just the all rightest game out of anybody. He was 18 for 28, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he evened it out with 2 interceptions. Like I said, he didn't play phenomenal. So what? He got the big fat W, okay? And like I said, in the second half, what did he do? He played a good first half. He delegated. That's what average Joes do. The king of delegation. It's like, okay, I did my part here in the first half. I'm going to let my teammates take over, okay? You guys take over. And that's what Mitcher did in this game. He was just delegating to everybody else. So congratulations, Mitcher Bisky, on winning the average Joe of week 2. You are great. I don't know what to say, but
or average.
Averagely great. Mitcher Bisky, congratulations. Moving on to the new segment that we're starting, and it's called Level of Concern. For those of you that are 21 Pilots fans, I'm sorry. We're not just going to play the song. I thought about it. Maybe just take like a 2-minute break and play the Level of Concern song by 21 Pilots. But no, we're going to go through all of the 0-2 teams, all of the teams that are winless so far through 2 weeks. And that is the Miami Dolphins, the Denver Broncos, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Atlanta Falcons, the Vikings, the Texans, the Eagles, the New York Giants, the Detroit Lions, the Carolina Panthers, and the New York Jets. And I'm going to let you know how concerned we should be about these teams. How concerned should you be? How concerned should we be? How concerned should they be? And first up, why don't we start with my favorite team? We want to talk about the Miami Dolphins, who are 0-2, took a loss to the Buffalo Bills this week after a loss to the New England Patriots in week 1. It's tough to be down 2 games to none in the division, but I put the Miami Dolphins level of concern at, let's say you forget your mask nowadays when you walk into a store. It's not, I would say it's a medium level of concern. It's not the end of the world, but it's an inconvenience. It's like, I kind of expected to be 0-2. Okay, I mean, I thought that they would be, but it's like they played, against Buffalo, they played well enough to win, and they blew it. So it's, I'm not too concerned because this team is still rebuilding, but eventually you have to be built. You can no longer rebuild. And it was, it's just annoying to be 0-2 right now. It's not all that concerning. And then we move on to the Denver Broncos, who are 0-2, and I put their level of concern at getting lost at the mall as a child. You feel that? You ever had that happen to you, Joe? You get lost?
I did not, actually.
Really?
I was too scared to not hold my mother's hand. I was always there.
And that's adorable.
Yeah.
That's adorable. That's why we hold hands during the podcast, actually.
We do.
Yeah, we're doing it right now, actually. And I
super sweaty.
Super so
always hot
sweaty.
in here.
It's always so hot in our studio. And I say getting lost at the mall because I think Denver Broncos fans are probably dazed and confused. I mean, it happened so fast. Things got bad so fast. I mean, Locke is gone for weeks. Sutton's gone for the year. I mean, Von Miller is no longer an option there. He was out before the season even started. Your once promising offense looked great. Your once promising shopping trip looked great. And now you lost your mom, and things are bad for the Denver Broncos. So I would put them at a medium concern. And then we move on to the Cincinnati Bengals, the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals. They lost in week 1 to the Los Angeles Chargers. Follow that up with a loss to the Cleveland Browns, rather. They did not lose to themselves. And I put them at a low level of concern. I compared it to kind of, knowing that you have a really crappy day at work. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, shoot, I got to go to work. It's going to suck.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to suck, but it's Friday. You're like, okay, I just got to get through this day and I can and it's going to be fine. It's going to be the weekend. And that's kind of where I put the Cincinnati Bengals at. It's like, yeah, things are going to suck now. They really suck. I mean, we're losing, and we're going to lose a lot this season. But we got Joey Burrow. He looks like the future. We've been competitive through 2 weeks. It's not been complete blowouts. The future looks bright. We just got to get through this season. Get through, this little bump in the road, and things will be great again. Moving on to the Atlanta Falcons, who are now 2-0 as well. They dropped the first game to the Seattle Seahawks and then had an embarrassing collapse against the Dallas Cowboys. And I put them at a medium-high level of concern. I compared it to having a wardrobe malfunction in public. This is kind of what I think.
Have you ever had one?
No.
Really?
Nope.
Are you sure?
How would I have a wardrobe malfunction? Like, how does a guy really have a wardrobe malfunction?
What's considered a wardrobe malfunction?
Like my fly down?
Is that, yeah.
Is that
I would absolutely say that's
okay.
a wardrobe
So I've had that a few times. Sometimes I'll walk out of the bathroom at work and I'll just be straight up. It's down and I don't even notice for a while.
Really?
Nobody points it out. I just notice myself.
Wow.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
I had a wardrobe malfunction.
Really?
In Chapters. You were there. You remember this. Christmas, the
Oh,
annual
yeah.
Christmas shopping with the guys.
That was
We drank
yes.
we drank eggnog in the car. We went into
like
Chapters.
we always do. Yeah, we have a Christmas tradition. We drink eggnog in the parking
Chapters
lot.
parking lot.
Chapters parking lot, which is a store for books.
Yeah.
We don't read.
We went in,
Yeah.
and then I freaking had a tag on my shirt. It was my favorite shirt. I had a
His
tag on my
his
shirt, and I was like,
favorite
"Oh
shirt.
shoot, there's a tag." Went and ripped it. I ripped a huge hole
Massive
in my
hole
shirt
in his shirt.
in the middle of Chapters.
In the middle of Chapters, he just had a massive. I do remember that. That was quite hilarious.
All up the side of mine.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you could not really avoid that. That was quite bad. And that's kind of how the Atlanta Falcons feel. I mean, they got embarrassed. It's embarrassing. You blew another lead. I mean, you're already jokes for blowing so many leads. And it's gotten to the point where it's like, okay, I've had so many wardrobe malfunctions, or like I might need to start getting new clothes, because obviously the clothes are the problem. And if you're the Falcons, you've blown so many leads, you've been embarrassed so many times. Maybe it's the coach. Maybe we need to start fresh, because obviously this is not working out. So the Atlanta Falcons, I put them at a medium-high level of concern. I would be a little concerned if I was I would be actually quite a bit concerned if I was the Atlanta Falcons. Moving on to 3 teams I put in one category. That's the Minnesota Vikings, the Houston Texans, and the Philadelphia Eagles. And I put them at a high level of concern. And basically, the level that I put them at is you planned a really cool pool party, and you're inviting a lot of people over, and then it rains on that day.
Oh no!
Yeah, that's kind of where they're level.
You plan an entire trip to go hiking in Hamilton. You find out all the trails.
All the trails are closed. Exactly like that. Exactly like that. It's something like that. That was a personal experience, but yeah, they had big expectations. All 3 of those teams this year: the Vikings, the Texans, and the Eagles. I think they were all projected to be playoff teams, and who knows? They still might be, but they've looked bad through 2 weeks. We talked about. Houston, maybe not so much as the other 2 teams. Houston's had a tough schedule, but Philadelphia and Minnesota, it's bad. I mean, not only did it rain on your party, but you also left all the food outside. It's like, oh, my freaking cake is getting rained on. And it's like, it's a mess. Like, there's injuries everywhere. Your quarterbacks look terrible. The cake's getting rained on. I don't know where I'm going with these metaphors anymore, honestly. It's a complete mess. But yeah, I would say that's a high level of concern for these 3 teams, for this season at least. Moving on to the New York Giants, and I say their level of concern, I'm going to keep it low. I'm going to keep it low, level of concern, and I'm going to compare it to taking a test that you didn't study for. So it's like you go into the test.
Always.
Yeah, basically every time. You're like, okay, I know I'm not prepared for this, so why even worry about it? It's like, I know I'm going to fail. I don't deserve to be good. That's kind of how I feel about the Giants. They had just a terrible roster. I mean, their roster is bad. Really, really bad. And, their defense is probably the worst defense I've ever seen on paper. They haven't played, I guess, all that bad through 2 weeks. But they were not prepared for this season. They were not prepared to compete We all knew they would be bad. I projected them to be the worst team in the league, and I think that still could be a possibility, especially with Saquon Barkley out. Saquon Barkley being out is basically like you didn't prepare for this test, and then you were planning on cheating off of the guy beside you, and then that guy called in sick that day. It was like, oh, I was really counting on him, and he's gone now, and things are gonna be really bad.
Or they write your essay for you, and they accidentally put their name on it.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's like to lose Saquon Barkley for this season. This Giants team, I think, is gonna be bad. Daniel Jones, he's looked good at times, but he's looked, lost at times as well. But I wouldn't be all too concerned. We knew you were going to be bad. I mean, if you're a Giants fan and you thought you were going to compete for a playoff spot, you maybe need a reality check. It's a bad roster, and it's going to take more than just a new coach to rebuild it. Moving on to the final three teams, rather. First up, we have the Detroit Lions, and I put them at a high level of concern as well. And I compared their level of concern to realizing that the relationship that you're in is a toxic one. Wow. And I think the Detroit Lions have a toxic relationship because Matt Patricia, he just isn't it. He just isn't it. He seems to have squabbles with players on his team. He doesn't seem to be the right fit there in Detroit. I mean, they might need to start fresh, and if you're in a toxic relationship, you might need to start fresh, You might need to just call her quits, realize this is not working out. Maybe get rid of Patricia, let Stafford go, let Bob Quinn go. This is how the Lions have felt for a long time. So maybe it's just them as a franchise, but maybe it's just time to move on. There's plenty of fish in the sea, Lions. You can get sea lions. There's many of fish in the sea lions.
I thought you were actually just making a funny bit there.
There's many of. I'm sure the sea lions have eaten many fish. Do sea lions eat fish?
I believe
for sure.
So.
What else would they eat?
What else would they eat?
Penguins?
Water?
Penguins, they do.
Water?
Water? They definitely eat water. Moving on to the second to last team, and it's the Carolina Panthers. I put them at a medium level of concern. And the Panthers, I compared it to, we talked about this this weekend, Joe, getting a fender bender. It's like, things were okay. Life wasn't great. You knew that you weren't going to be great. But now this happened, and this is Christian McCaffrey getting injured. It's like, now I got to deal with this.
This is the worst.
Yeah, it's like, that's the worst. It's like, that's my biggest fear when getting into an accident. It's not even getting into the accident or paying for it. It's just like, now I have to deal with this. It's like, now I have to talk to my insurance. Now I got to make a big deal about it.
Call my mom and dad.
Yeah, call my mommy and daddy. Let them know what happened. Let them tell me what to do. And that's how losing Christian McCaffrey is. It's like, things were not that great, but he was kind of like the last thing holding you guys together. It's a big setback. So I would say it's a medium level concern, but only medium because who knows? You might end up with Trevor Lawrence after the season. Moving on to the final team in my level of concern, and it's the New York Jets. Oh, baby. Save the best for last. The New York Jets. I put them at the highest of the high level of concern. And this level of concern is basically you had a lot of jalapeno poppers last night. A lot of jalapeno poppers. And you didn't realize your work is going to take you somewhere where there's no bathroom around. There's no bathroom around.
Oh, no.
That's what I put their level of concern at. It's like, things are bad right now, and they're not going to get better anytime soon. I don't see a viable option to where this is going to get good for me.
Oh, boy.
This is bad for me to have. And things could get crappy really, really shortly, if you know what I'm saying. The New York Jets, let me just go in on them real quick. I told you when you hired Adam Gase, this was going to happen. Adam Gase is a garbage head coach. I'm going to say it again. You should have never hired him. You should have fired him after last year. And this team is a mess. They're the ugliest, most horrible looking team in the NFL right now. They look brutal. I mean, there's genuinely nothing good to take away from this. You have a potential franchise quarterback, and his career is probably ruined now because you decided to bring Adam Gase, the offensive genius, whose offense consists of throwing wide receiver screens and halfback draws. That's essentially always all he does. I mean, everything sucks right now in New York, and I don't know how it's going to get better, but I know you can start by firing Adam Gase, because what has he done to deserve a head coaching job anymore? I mean, he's completely taken a team that already was not in a great spot and made them so much worse. And I'm a Dolphins fan, so I've always, had a strong dislike for the New York Jets, but I genuinely feel bad for Jets fans because they deserve better. They're a loyal fan base, and to have Adam Gase come in there and basically take a crap all over this team. He potentially ruined Sam Darnold's career. I hope it's not ruined, but it does not look good right now. He has a terrible relationship with Le'Veon Bell, who was your big free agent signing, and it just looks bad there in New York. I hope Adam Gase doesn't have a job soon, and things can start to look a little bit better for you. But that kind of wraps up the level of concern. And why don't we just get into my Week 3 picks? Just wrapped up talking about Week 2. Let's get into my Week 3 picks. And we're going to start off with the Thursday night game. And I have a good friend named Joel. Shout out to you, Joel. Joel's our good friend. Joe and I's good friend. We make a bet every primetime game. Thursday night game, Monday night game. We bet a coffee on the games. And I pick every Thursday game. He picks every Monday game. So the Thursday night game officially on this podcast is going to be known as the coffee game. So this is the coffee game. I'm picking the Miami Dolphins. My Miami Dolphins.
Are you sure?
No, not sure at all. To win 23-16 over Gardner Minshew and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have it here. I don't want to root against Miami. That's essentially my only reasoning for picking them. I don't feel great about it. I think the Dolphins have been disappointing. I could see Gardner Minshew lighting it up against them, but I just don't want to root against my favorite team. So I'm going to pick the Dolphins to win the coffee game. Win me another coffee. That would be 3 in a row for your boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I should start doing that. I never ever
get
coffee.
Get in on that. We can do a different game here if you want to bet on one. Just come up with one. And we'll bet on it, man. But I just want everybody to know as well. Last week, went through and looked at my picks. I was 13-3 last week. 13 correct guesses, 3 incorrect guesses.
That's impressive.
I'm the pick master, baby. Call me Pick Rick, baby. You want to? I'm saying baby a lot again in this podcast.
You are.
Second straight one in a row.
Every episode, Joe has at least one word that he says just over and over and over.
See if you can spot it. It's kind of like Pee Wee Herman. I don't know if you know who that is, Joe.
No.
It was a kid's show. He has like the word of the day. And my word of the day, you have to find it every episode. Which word am I saying a lot?
I'm not going to put more work into this episode, into this podcast.
No.
I refuse.
You don't have to put any work. This is all the audience working.
Oh, the audience.
Yeah.
I thought you're talking directly to me.
No, but I just want everybody to know I was 13-3 this last week. I didn't have to do the punishment, which I believe the punishment is, and I was trying to come up with punishment. Nobody wants to give me one, so I have to come up with it myself. I was like something terrible, but not too terrible. So if I get a lock wrong, I have to drink a raw egg.
A raw egg.
Yeah, I have to drink a raw egg.
Question: will you crack it from the shell, or will you scramble it first?
Nope. Crack it in the shell, into the cup,
down the hatch.
Down the hatch.
But if you choke on the yolk,
whoa, that'd be a joke, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Very good.
Good.
That's going to be on my Instagram, but I'm not going to get it wrong ever. So it's never going to be on my Instagram.
So wait, you just made your pick, which is the Dolphins.
Well, that's not my lock, though. We'll get into my lock.
Your lock.
Let's get into the picks this week. First up, we have the Chicago Bears. The Bears. Going up against the Atlanta Falcons. And as much as I love you, Mitcher, I got to keep my good picks going. I'm picking the Falcons to win this week. I'm sorry, Bisky. But the Falcons, I think they've played bad so far. I think they're going to get a bounce back and win over the Bears here. And then we move on to the Rams versus the Bills. Give me the Rams this week. I like that. I like what they're doing. I think they look good. Aaron Donald is awesome still. Jared Goff is playing well. Buffalo's playing really well too. If Josh Allen throws for 400 yards like he did last week again, this could have a very different outcome. But I like the Rams this week. And then we go to Washington at Cleveland. Give me Cleveland. I like where they're at right now. I like the swagger they're playing with. I hope that continues. And then we got Tennessee versus Minnesota. Minnesota looks like a hot mess right now. They look like they could be on the decline. Kirk Cousins looks bad. Ryan Tannehill looks good. Give me Tennessee. And then you have Las Vegas versus the New England Patriots. Las Vegas looked good. Las Vegas looked good against the New Orleans Saints on Monday. I still think the Patriots are better. Give me the Patriots. Then we have the San Francisco 49ers with all their injuries going back to MetLife Stadium to play the New York Giants. Give me San Francisco. I don't care about their injuries. The Giants are bad. Cincinnati versus Philadelphia. Philadelphia gets their first win of the season. They need a win right now. They are in a rough spot. Pittsburgh versus Houston. Give me Pittsburgh. Houston gets off to an 0-3 start. I could see this being a competitive game, and I almost wanted to pick Houston, but that Pittsburgh defense is scary, and that offensive line there in Houston is not good. They're scary in a different way, in a bad way. That could be a rough outing for Deshaun Watson. And then we have the New York Jets at the Indianapolis Colts. An easy win for the Colts. The Jets, like we talked about, they're a diarrhea mess right now. So I don't trust them whatsoever. The Los Angeles Chargers are going to be visited by the Carolina Panthers this week. Give me the Chargers. I think they're a good team. They got talent all across the board. They gave the Chiefs all they could handle this last week. Whether it's Tyrod or Justin Herbert starting, I like them over Carolina without Christian McCaffrey. And Detroit is visiting Arizona this week. Detroit, I think, as another team trending in the wrong direction. Arizona is the exact opposite. They're trending very much in the right direction. Give me Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. And then we have Tampa Bay versus Denver. I like Tom Brady getting his second win there for Tampa Bay against an injury-riddled Broncos team. And then potentially the game of the week, Dallas versus Seattle. In Seattle, two teams coming off big victories. And I like Seattle. I love what they're doing. Russell Wilson looks good. He's cooking this year. He's an MVP favorite right now. But give me Dallas. I hyped him up all year. I got to stick with them. I'm going to say Dallas wins in sort of an upset. And then Green Bay at New Orleans. New Orleans coming off a tough loss to the Raiders where they did not look themselves. Green Bay has looked themselves and then some so far this season. So give me the Packers over the Saints. Aaron Rodgers has been awesome, and I'm excited for this Packers team. And then finally, the game of the year potentially, an AFC championship preview potentially. It's Joe's Baltimore Ravens.
I was thinking about this
game
already.
Yeah, you were thinking about it. Very good. Playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. And my lock of the week is coming from this game. This is bold because these teams, they're both very good. I'm locking up your Baltimore Ravens.
I knew it.
I am locking them up.
What day is this game?
It's on Monday. Monday night. You going to come over and watch the game?
I want to watch that game.
Let's do it, man.
I want to watch that game.
We're going to be watching the game, and if Baltimore doesn't come through, I'm drinking that egg.
Yes.
But I'm not worried, man. Baltimore.
That's your lock.
That's my lock of the week.
Wow.
I think Kansas City's awesome. Kansas City looks great, but nobody looks better than Baltimore right now. I mean, they are just beating the piss out of teams right now. I mean, they are taking teams' pride. I mean, and they looked like this last season, and they look even better this season. So Baltimore is my lock of the week. Those are my week 3 picks. And Joe, you got anything to say before we wrap up the show? I've given you all show to come up with something to say.
No, I just don't got much to say.
You got any music recommendations for the people? They've been jonesing for some of your music recommendations. What are you listening to lately? I know you're boycotting the Grammys, so nothing that's going on there you're listening to. But
something I will be listening to for a while. Everybody Plays the Fool.
Everybody Plays the Fool.
It's a song that Joe found and
that's right.
Made a note of. And he showed it to me.
Yeah.
And wow.
Yeah. It is
what a
good.
good song.
It's by, who's it by again?
The Main Ingredient.
The Main Ingredient. Look up Everybody Plays the Fool. I don't know where I got this song from. It was in my notes. We were looking at our phone notes. Good. Way deep in my notes. That song was in there. We found it. It's a great song. I wish copyright didn't exist and that could be the theme for our podcast.
I know. I'm going to see if I can get the rights to that.
It's tremendous. It's such a good song. So make sure you listen to Everybody Plays the Fool by The Main Ingredient. Yeah, that's a fantastic song. Once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this show. It was fun to do it. We're in this hot studio again. Hot studio, dropping some straight fire. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to it, please leave us a 5-star review or a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Say something nice about us. If you got something negative to say, take it somewhere else. Hit that subscribe button so you get automatic downloads. Downloads help us a lot. And if you enjoy the podcast, please share it with your friends. We want to spread the podcast around, build a community, get more listeners. We would love to, spread the podcast around if you enjoy it. Make sure to follow the show on Instagram and Twitter @_AverageJoeShow. We just did a Madden giveaway on my Instagram. We're going to do more giveaways to come eventually. So make sure you get on that Instagram and on that Twitter. Make sure you tune in every Thursday now for brand new episodes. And I guess we got nothing else to say. So I will catch you guys on the next one.